Let me tell you what my deep research and basically vision is.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is.
I'm not telling you nothing.
The aliens won't let it happen.
Happening now, breaking.
Bernie Sanders is angry.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
What are the tips? Give me some tips on how to work with Wes Anderson.
Be ready to speak very fast and very clearly, because that's definitely one key thing.
I will only tell the truth. I will only
Until you and 6 kids you barely know in wet bathing suits have surrounded 9 chimpanzees outside of a Wendy's. You probably really don't know yourself, okay?
Yep. And we back.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to your new favorite podcast and the best in political, sports, and paranormal news coverage. I'm your host, Wes Anderson, and this is In the Shed. This is episode 86, so whether you're coming back for more or finding us for the first time this week, hey, thanks for tuning in. It is late Sunday night, March the 16th, and I'm in a shed in the backyard of my home in Alabama to talk March Madness with you. Yeah, welcome back into the shed, my people, my babies, my tools. I am with you late on a Sunday night because it is that time of the year. This is our In the Shed with Wes Anderson March Madness Extravaganza. Pursuit for the perfect bracket. We are going to break it down with you. I have not seen the brackets yet. Have not given them even a single glance. And we're going to go through every matchup, every region, and we're going to fill it out with you, our sheet of integrity, and see who it is that we have as this year's national champion, as we try to do what nobody has ever done and produce the perfect bracket. Let's get into it. Okay, it appears that my Auburn Tigers have earned the number 1 overall seed in this year's tournament. They're in the South region, and they host the winner of one of the play-in games, Alabama State versus St. Francis of Pennsylvania, and I don't care who wins that game. Auburn is not going out in the first round again, not as the number 1 overall seed, which I think they deserve to get over Duke. Auburn has the best resume in the country from the beginning of the year to the end, with 15 or 16 quad 1 wins, winning an SEC regular season title in one of the most competitive conferences that we've ever seen. Give me Auburn by 20 in round 1. In the 8-9 matchup in the South region, in Rupp Arena, you have the Louisville Cardinals, the 8 seed, playing the Creighton Blue Jays, the 9 seed. Louisville's 27-7 on the year. They're a very good team out of the ACC. Creighton is 24-10. And I think the Louisville Cardinals win this one. They've had one of the biggest turnarounds in all of college basketball this year. They're a very good team. I think though Creighton is formidable, I have Louisville winning and advancing on to play Auburn in the second round. The 5-12 matchup in the South bracket is the Michigan Wolverines, the 5 seed, against UC San Diego, the 12 seed. And this is an intriguing matchup. UCSD is one of the teams, one of the mid-majors that coming into the tournament, I wanted to see where they landed. I thought they could certainly make some noise. They're 30-4 on the year. They average 80 points a game. They can really score. They certainly have the potential to pull an upset here. But I think Michigan is a very good basketball team. They just finished winning the Big Ten Tournament Championship over Wisconsin. They're ranked 29th in the BPI. They have my guy, former Auburn point guard Trey Donaldson, that just hit a game-winning shot. And I think they're peaking at the right time. The 5-12 matchup is always an interesting one and one in which you see a lot of upsets. But give me Michigan to advance. The 4-13 matchup in the South is the Texas A&M Aggies versus the Yale Bulldogs. Texas A&M is 22-10 out of the SEC. Yale is 22-7 out of the Ivy League. And look, Yale is a very fundamentally sound basketball team. I know that's very cliche to say about an Ivy League school, but it's also true. They defeated my Auburn Tigers last year in the first round. Had no business losing that game. We lost Chad Baker-Mazara to a flagrant 2 and never could hit an open shot and lost to Yale. The same thing could certainly happen to Texas A&M, a very good defensive team, but a team that relies far too much on Wade Taylor, their star guard. When he is on, they're one of the best 12 teams in the country. When he's not, they struggle to score the basketball. Yale is a team that has wins over Purdue and Minnesota and Rhode Island and Princeton twice this year. They scored the ball with more ease than does Texas A&M. But give me Buzz Williams and the Aggies to advance to the second round in this matchup. The 6-11 matchup is the Ole Miss Rebels against the winner of San Diego State and the North Carolina Tar Heels. And look, I did not think that the Tar Heels belonged in the tournament. Their record against Quad 1 teams is abysmal. I didn't think that they should make it. Their resume is not very good. However, I think whichever team wins between San Diego State and North Carolina is more than capable of defeating Ole Miss. And I think that's exactly what happens. Give me the 11 over the 6 here. The 3-14 matchup in the South is the Iowa State Cyclones against Lipscomb. Iowa State is 24-9 on the year. Lipscomb a respectable 25-9. But I just don't see Lipscomb pulling off the upset. Even in March Madness, I think that Iowa State is one of the 5 to 10 best teams in this tournament. I think they get it done in advance. The 7-10 matchup in the South is Marquette versus New Mexico. Marquette is 23-10 on the year. New Mexico 26-7. And look, New Mexico can score the ball. Donovan Dent on their team averages 20 points a game, almost 21 points a game. As a team, New Mexico averages over 80 points a game. They have wins earlier this year at UCLA and at St. John's. They've beat VCU, San Diego State twice, and Boise State. It's not a popular pick, and I might be wrong, but give me New Mexico State in the upset. Rounding out the South, you have the 2 seed, the Michigan State Spartans versus the 15 seed Bryant, and I've got Michigan State all day. I've got Michigan State big. I think that they are a very good team under Tom Izzo. They've overperformed all year long. They've played and beaten a lot of quality opponents. I don't think that they have trouble in round 1, and I know that I'm biased. I know that I'm an Auburn and Kentucky basketball fan, but I just have to say, to be the number 1 overall seed and be staring at Louisville in the second round and be in the same region as Michigan and as Yale, who beat you last year, and Texas A&M that beat you last week, Ole Miss, who played you tough in the SEC tournament, North Carolina, who is a true blue blood, Iowa State, and Michigan State. Man, that is a tough region. I haven't seen the others yet, but my initial reaction is that is a difficult run for a number 1 overall seed, even if they begin by playing in the South. Let's jump to the West region of the bracket, where the number 1 seed there is the Florida Gators, the SEC tournament champs, and possibly the best team in college basketball. They really might be the best team in college basketball. They played Norfolk State, the 16 seed. I don't see them having any trouble in round 1. They advance. The 8-9 matchup in the West is the 8 seed, the UConn Huskies, versus the 9 seed, my Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma was one of the 5 teams I gave you to watch outside of the top 10 when the season began. And look, I think that Porter Moser is a top 10 tactical X's and O's coach in college basketball today. I think Oklahoma has one of the most exciting players in the tournament in freshman guard Jeremiah Fears. He has no fears, but I just think UConn wins. I think solo ball, Liam McNeely and company are just too much for Oklahoma to handle. I think experience wins out. The 2-time champs do not go out in the first round. They advance to play the Florida Gators. The 5-12 matchup is Memphis versus Colorado State. Memphis at 29-5 on the year. Colorado State the inverse at 25-9. And this is a 12-5 matchup that many will have the 12 winning. In fact, Colorado State is actually favored to beat Memphis. Memphis has more impressive wins on the year, but they also have a tendency to play up or down to their competition. If they take this game lightly, which you would think they wouldn't in the NCAA tournament, but you never know, then Colorado State could certainly win. And in fact, I think they do. Give me the 12 seed. Give me Colorado State over Memphis. In the 4-13 matchup in the West, you have Maryland, who is 25-8 out of the Big Ten, versus Grand Canyon, who is 26-7 and is a fun team. They're up and down the court. They've played well in the tournament the last couple of years, and I just don't see it. I just don't think Grand Canyon has played many teams the caliber of Maryland. I have the Terrapins beating them and advancing. One of the more intriguing matchups that we've come across so far is in the West region. The 6-seed Missouri Tigers out of the SEC versus the Drake Bulldogs. And look, Missouri is 22-11. They have some impressive wins. Coach Gates there has done one of the best coaching jobs in all of college basketball. But Drake is one of the teams I've been on since before the season started. They hired a Division II coach in Ben McCollum. He brought 4 of his players with him, and they went 30-3 on the year. This is a matchup of offense versus defense. Missouri certainly has the players and the pieces to play exceptional defense at times, although they're not as consistent as you would like to see. And Drake is one of the best defensive teams in college basketball. Granted, their schedule is not what Missouri has played, but they hold teams to 58 points a game. It would not at all, of course, be surprising if Missouri were to win in blowout fashion, but hey, I'm riding with my Bulldogs. Give me Drake, the 11 over the 6 seed, and I'll be upfront with you. I have a tendency to pick 11 over 6 far too often. But I'm going to do it again. It's my shed, my show. You can't stop me. In the 3-14 matchup in the West, Texas Tech plays UNC Wilmington. That one is not close. Texas Tech comes away with the win. The 7 and 10 seed there is a very interesting matchup also between the 7 seed, the Kansas Jayhawks and Bill Self, and the 10 seed, the Arkansas Razorbacks and John Calipari. And these teams are very similar. Both teams have rosters replete with talent, but both teams have also underperformed. Kansas is 21-12 on the year. Arkansas is 20-13. They both score 76 points a game. Kansas gives up 69 points a game to Arkansas 71. If Arkansas can hit enough open threes in this game, they win. I'm going with the Razorbacks. Give me Coach Cal and the Razorbacks advancing to the second round in a mild upset. Then the 2-15 matchup in the West, you have St. John's and the vampire himself. The guy whose autographed Louisville Cardinals poster is sitting behind me. Yes, I'm a Kentucky fan. Why do I have it? My uncle gave it to me. Rick Pitino and St. John's against Omaha, a team that has one of the coolest victory celebrations in all of college basketball. Look it up. Unfortunately, I don't think you will see it. St. John's wins. Moving on to the East region, where the Duke Blue Devils, the 1 seed with or without Cooper Flagg, have no problem in round 1. Playing against a 16 seed and the winner of a playing game, they advance to the second round. The 8-9 matchup there is the 8 seed, the Mississippi State Bulldogs, against the 9 seed, the Baylor Bears. And Mississippi State has the better record on the year at 21-12 versus Baylor's 19-14. But Baylor has the better head coach. But both these teams are teams that are inconsistent, teams that are high and low. And it's going to be a very evenly played game in my estimation. I think the key is Baylor's offensive rebounding. I have them beating Mississippi State and advancing to play Duke. The 5-12 matchup here in the East is the 5 seed, the Oregon Ducks, who are 24-9 on the year, versus the 12 seed, the Liberty Flames, who are 28-6. And Oregon is the easy pick. They play in a tougher conference. They're more of a name brand team. But Liberty is not a team to be overlooked. They have victories over Kansas State on the road versus McNeese State. They're every bit the scoring team that Oregon is, even though their leading scorer only averages 14 points a game. I'm going with the major upset. Give me the 12 over the 5. One of the 5 teams I gave you, one of the 2 mid-majors I gave you before the year even began. They both made the tournament. Give me the Liberty Flames in the upset over Oregon. The 4-13 matchup in the East is the Arizona Wildcats at 22-12 versus Akron, who is an impressive 28-6 on the year. But LeBron James ain't walking through that door. I think Arizona is too big, too talented, too deep, and packs too much of a scoring punch. I like the Wildcats in that matchup. In the 6-11 matchup, we have BYU versus VCU. BYU is 24-9. Virginia Commonwealth is 28-6. And look, VCU has beaten Miami. They beat both Dayton and George Mason twice. But BYU can really score the basketball. I expect this game to be up and down, back and forth. VCU will try to make it a sloppy defensive fest. And I think BYU will shoot them out of the gym. I like the 6 over the 11 here. BYU advances. The 3-14 matchup in the East is the Wisconsin Badgers against the Montana Grizzlies. And Montana has had a heck of a year. 25-9 on the year, conference champions. But I just don't think they have enough to beat Wisconsin. Wisconsin is one of the most well-rounded teams in all of college basketball. Their basketball team is far better at scoring than their football team was. I just think Wisconsin has too much for the Grizzlies to handle. They win the game and they move on. The 7-10 matchup pits St. Mary's against Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt 20-12 out of the SEC. St. Mary's at 28-5 out of the West Coast Conference. And get to know the name, Paulius Marascus. Don't even know if I'm saying it right, but this is a guard for St. Mary's who I think will have a breakout tournament. St. Mary's beat Gonzaga twice. They beat Nebraska and USC and Utah. And I think they're too good to lose this game. I think they defeat Vanderbilt and move on to the second round. Then the 2-15 matchup in the East is the Alabama Crimson Tide against Robert Morris, which sounds like one of my neighbors. And unfortunately, Alabama advances. Mark Sears gets to shoot 30 free throws a game. And Nate Oates, even though I find him to be reprehensible as a human being, remember I'm an Auburn fan, he's actually a very good basketball coach. The Tide can certainly fill it up. They're one of the best offensive teams in the country, and they're peaking at the exact right moment. They move on to the second round. And I just have to say that overall, it appears to me that the Duke Blue Devils have a much easier go than the number 1 overall seed Auburn Tigers. Who does Duke have in their region? They've got Arizona, Wisconsin, and Alabama, but how does that stack up against who Auburn has in the South? Auburn has Louisville, Michigan, Texas A&M, Iowa State, and Michigan State. I would take the East region over the South any day if I were the Auburn Tigers, even with Alabama in the same bracket. But that's just me. Moving on to the Midwest region, the 1 seed overall there is the Houston Cougars. And we have a matchup of Cougars as Houston takes on the 16 seed Southern Illinois University Edwardsville, which might be a trade school. My apologies to fans of Southern Illinois University Edwardsville, but you're going home. The better Cougars advance. In the 8-9 matchup, you have a battle of Bulldogs. So first we had Cougars, now we have Bulldogs. This is kind of weird. Why are you doing this, selection committee? But hey, ratings. Gonzaga versus Georgia. Gonzaga is 25-8 on the year. Georgia is 20-12. And I just believe in Gonzaga. because of history, because of the way they perform in the tournament, because of their head coach, Mark Few. I'm going with the Gonzaga Bulldogs. I think they might still have one of those Nembhard kids on their roster. Those guys have been in college forever. Is that true? Jamie, pull it up. I don't know. I'm taking Gonzaga. The 5-12 matchup in the Midwest is the Clemson Tigers versus McNeese State. And look, McNeese is a very good team. This is a team that it would not surprise me at all if they made the Sweet 16. They could legitimately go on a run. This is one of the mid-major teams to watch, but I'm going with Clemson. I'm going with Chase Hunter and company. Clemson has played a much tougher schedule. They've been a very good defensive team all year. And again, they're one of the 5 teams that I gave you ranked outside of the top 10 at the beginning of the year that could make a run. I think they begin their run by beating McNeese and moving on to the second round. The 4-13 matchup is the Purdue Boilermakers versus the 13 seed High Point, Tubby Smith's alma mater. And I wish I could say they will win. I think Purdue moves on. The 6-11 matchup in the Midwest region is the Illinois Fighting Illini versus the winner of Texas and Xavier. And Texas or Xavier could win against Illinois. I think Texas beats Xavier, but I think Illinois advances. I think they play up to their potential. They outscore either Texas or Xavier, and they advance. The 3-14 matchup in the Midwest is my Kentucky Wildcats against the Troy Trojans, where my mom went to school, here in my neck of the woods. I thought that Troy was a team that when they made the tournament, if they got a 13 seed or lower, could potentially make a run. But I just don't see it against Kentucky. Even though Kentucky is banged up, I think Otega, Owe, and company are just too much for the Trojans. I think that Kentucky is one of the better scoring teams in the country. I think Mark Pope gets his first win in the NCAA tournament with the Wildcats and et al., and they defeat Troy and move on to the second round. The 7-10 matchup is the UCLA Bruins against the Utah State Aggies. UCLA is 22-10 on the year. The Aggies are 26-7. And look, Utah State has made the NCAA tournament 3 consecutive years, even with 3 different coaches. They are the clear underdogs, but they have a deep bench. They have a lot of guys that can play. They score 80 points a game. They're good enough on defense. I'm going to go with the upset, the 10 over the 7 here. Give me Utah State. And then in the 2-15 matchup in the Midwest, you have the Tennessee Volunteers, who just competed for the SEC Tournament Championship against Wofford. And I think that Rick Barnes and company get it done, at least in the first round. They advance. So a lot of chalk in the Midwest in the first round, but that is how I see it. Moving back to the South for the round of 32, where Auburn, the 1 seed overall, takes on the 8 seed, the Louisville Cardinals. And look, I love my Auburn Tigers, and I do not like Louisville at all. At all. But this is a matchup that terrifies me. I think this is a game that Auburn could very easily lose. Louisville is playing like they have nothing to lose. Auburn is playing like they're afraid of being exposed as a team that's not as good as their record. Auburn has dropped 3 out of 4. They have all the depth and the talent to win 6 games and cut down the nets and hang a banner. But they could go out in the second round. In the NCAA tournament, it's all about matchups, and they could lose this matchup. My head tells me to pick Louisville. My heart tells me to pick Auburn. I'm going to go with my heart. I'm going to go with the idea that Auburn plays up to their capabilities, puts something together, gets the ball inside to Janai Broome, the best player in the country. Their depth takes over. Their defense is good enough. They find a way to win and advance to the Sweet 16. The next matchup is the 5 seed, the Michigan Wolverines, against the 4 seed, Texas A&M. And Buzz Williams and company and the Aggies play tremendous defense. Michigan is a good defensive team. Texas A&M is elite. But I just don't think Texas A&M has the offense to win this game. Give me the Wolverines in this matchup. According to my bracket, the next matchup in the South is the 11 seed, the winner of San Diego State and UNC, which I think will be North Carolina, against the 14 seed Lipscomb. Give me the 11 over the 14. North Carolina advances there. Then we have the 10 seed New Mexico against the 2 seed Michigan State. And I think New Mexico is a very good ball club. I think that they are formidable. I don't see them beating Michigan State. I think Michigan State is a team with something to prove. I think that they're going to make a run in this tournament. I have them advancing to the Sweet 16. In the West, the Florida Gators take on the two-time defending national champion UConn Huskies, the 1 versus the 8. And look, UConn is a very good team. They have one of the best 3 coaches in all of college basketball, even though he's a psychopath. But I think that Walter Clayton is too good. I think that Florida is too deep. I think that their defense is phenomenal. I think that they're one of the best teams in the country when it comes to the 4 and 5 positions. They have too much. I think they defeat UConn and they move on. In the 12-4 matchup there in the second round, we have the 12 seed Colorado State versus the 4 seed Maryland. And give me the Rams. We're going the Rams. The 12 seed making the Sweet 16. Another upset. Ram it is what they say at the University of Mobile where my wife went, which is a NAIA school whose mascot is the Rams. That may or may not be affecting my choice here. I'm going with Colorado State. Staying in the West, we have the 11 seed, the Drake Bulldogs, against the 3 seed Texas Tech. And Texas Tech is no doubt the better team. They are exceptional on the defensive end. They're very well coached. They have a lot of talent. But I'm going to go with my Drake Bulldogs to make the Sweet 16 as an 11 seed. As a team that most people have losing in round 1, I say they win 2 games and they make the Sweet 16. The last matchup in the West in the round of 32, according to my bracket, is an interesting one indeed. The 10 seed, the Arkansas Razorbacks with former Kentucky coach John Calipari, versus the 2 seed with former Kentucky coach Rick Pitino and St. John's. And I just think that St. John's is too good a team. They're hitting their peak at the right moment. They have really embodied the personality of their coach. They play with so much effort and so much tenacity and so well on both sides of the floor. I think St. John's moves on here. In the East region, you have the 1 seed, the Duke Blue Devils, against the 9 seed, the Baylor Bears. And again, even if Cooper Flagg does not play or is not 100%, I think Duke has enough. They move on and they beat Baylor to advance to the Sweet 16. Then we have the Liberty Flames, the 12 seed, against the 4 seed, the Arizona Wildcats. And Arizona is just too much. They're too deep, they're too talented, they have too much scoring. They defeat Liberty, they move on to face Duke in the Sweet 16. Wrapping up the East, we have the 6 seed, the BYU Cougars, against the 3 seed, the Wisconsin Badgers. And I think Wisconsin is one of the more underrated teams in the bracket this year. I think they have a very good team that plays up to their competition. They're way better offensively than a typical Wisconsin team, but they still have that hard edge and that tough defense. I think that they have enough to get by BYU and advance and make the Sweet 16. And then you have the 7 seed St. Mary's against the 2 seed Alabama. I'm no fan of Alabama. Their downfall will be their defense if they lose in this tournament. I don't think it will be against St. Mary's. They have too much athleticism, too much talent, too much depth. I think they win this one and advance to the Sweet 16 out of the East. In the Midwest region, in the round of 32, you have the 1 seed, the Houston Cougars, against the 8 seed, the Gonzaga Bulldogs. And I just think Houston is too good to lose. I know there's a lot of chalk. I'm picking 1 seeds to advance. But I just think Houston is one of the best 5 teams in all of college basketball. They have great guard play. They're exceptional on defense. They're very well coached. I think they move on against Houston. Then we have the 5 seed, the Clemson Tigers, against the 4 seed Purdue. And this game will come down to how it is refereed. I know that's a wild thing to say, but I think it comes down to how it is refereed. If you have watched Purdue play, they have gotten the benefit of a lot of calls. They're very good in close games. They're very good in games that are called very tightly. But I think Clemson has enough offense. I think Clemson finds a way to outscore Purdue and to advance to the Sweet 16. I have the 5 over the 4 there, moving on. Closing out the Midwest region in the round of 32, I have the 6 seed Illinois versus the 3 seed Kentucky. And I would love to pick my Wildcats. I think they are a potential Elite 8 team. They can outscore almost anybody in college basketball, but they are also very banged up, especially at guard. And if they don't get healthier in the next 5 days, unfortunately, I think it could result in an early exit from the tournament for them. I think the Illini outscore them and advance to the Sweet 16. Then you have the 10 seed Utah State Aggies against the 2 seed Tennessee. And I just cannot see Tennessee losing to Utah State. I know the Rick Barnes teams have a history of bowing out early in the tournament. He's got some really good squads that have lost very early. I don't think it happens here. Tennessee is too deep. They're too physical. They're too good up front. They're too good off the bench. I think that they beat Utah State and advance to the Sweet 16. Looking at the Sweet 16 in the South region, we have the number 1 seed, the Auburn Tigers, versus the 5 seed, the Michigan Wolverines. And despite Trey Donaldson, who I love playing for Michigan, I just think Auburn has too much offensive firepower if they make it this far. If they advance past Louisville, they match up very well with Michigan. I think they outscore them and advance to the Elite 8. Also in the South, you have the 11 seed, the winner of San Diego State and North Carolina, versus the 2 seed Michigan State. And whoever it is, San Diego State or North Carolina, I just don't think that they have the firepower to hang with Michigan State. Give me the Spartans and Tom Izzo advancing to the Elite 8 to face Auburn. In the West, I have the 1 seed, the Florida Gators, against the 12 seed Colorado State, and this is not a good matchup for Colorado State. Florida is too big, they're too physical, they're too good up front, they're too good at guard. They're one of the best 2 or 3 teams in all of college basketball right now, peaking at the right moment. Give me the Florida Gators to advance. Also in the West, I have the 11 seed Drake Bulldogs against the 2 seed St. John's. And St. John's, I think, is ready to make a run. I think they're just a team who is playing at their pinnacle. They're just finally reaching their potential. They're a very good basketball team. They're too much for Drake. A magical run from Drake if they make it this far. I don't see them beating St. John's. In the East, I have the 1 seed Duke versus the 4 seed Arizona, and eventually a 1 seed will have to lose. They can't all make the Final Four. Doesn't usually happen that way. But I have Duke moving on, unfortunately. I don't think Arizona has the defense and the depth to hang with Duke. I think the Duke advances there. The other matchup in the East is the 3 seed, the Wisconsin Badgers, versus the 2 seed, the Alabama Crimson Tide. And unfortunately, I have Alabama. I have the Tide moving on to the Elite 8. I think they have too much firepower offensively. They're too good on the offensive glass for the Badgers. They have too much athleticism. I think that they move on to the Elite 8. Finally, in the Midwest, I have the 1 seed Houston Cougars against the 6 seed, the Clemson Tigers. And Houston is just too good of a team. They have too much offensively. They're too good defensively. They're better coached. I just think they are too much for Clemson. They overwhelm them in the second half. It's probably close at halftime. I think Houston pulls away in the second half and moves on. And then I have the 6 seed, the Fighting Illini from Illinois, versus the 2 seed Tennessee. And as much as Rick Barnes has had problems in the NCAA tournament, I just cannot imagine Tennessee losing up to this point. It could happen. I could be wrong. I'm wrong very often. Ask my wife. Okay. But I have Tennessee outpowering Illinois, being more physical, playing better defense, and moving on to the Elite 8. So I have all 4 1 seeds making it to the Elite 8, which lets you know that I probably will not have the perfect bracket. It just doesn't happen very much where all 4 1 seeds make it to the Elite 8. Somebody is bound to lose before then. Hopefully not my Auburn Tigers, though. I think they could lose in the second round. And I've been upfront about it. But I have all 4 1 seeds making the Elite 8. I digress. Moving on to the Elite 8 in the South region, I have the 1 seed, the Auburn Tigers, versus the 2 seed, Michigan State. And I just think Sparty pulls it out. I wish Auburn would win 6 games and win the national championship, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Auburn has lost 3 out of 4 games entering the tournament. It looks like another season where they have peaked too early, despite having their best season in program history. Despite their depth, despite their defense, despite their ability to score at the guard position, it just seems like a year in which Michigan State would win this game. I have them moving on to the Final Four. In the West, I have the 1 seed, the Florida Gators, against the 2 seed, St. John's, another 1-2 matchup there. Florida is too talented, too deep, too big. I have the Gators moving on to the Final Four. In the East, I have the 1 seed Duke versus the 2 seed Alabama. And as much as I hate to say it, I think that the Crimson Tide have a very good chance to make back-to-back Final Fours. I have Nate Oates, Mark Sears and company defeating Duke and moving on to the Final Four. And in the Midwest, I have the 2 seed Tennessee advancing over a very good basketball team, but a team that struggles to score late in games. I think Tennessee hits some open threes and outshoots Houston and advances to the Final Four. And in the Elite Eight, I have all 1 versus 2 matchups. Again, I tell you that this is not going to be the perfect bracket. I have not done it. There's too many upsets that will happen. I have all 1 and 2 seeds advancing to the Elite Eight. It's not going to happen that way, but it's how I have it. So my Final Four is Michigan State versus Florida, Alabama versus Tennessee. Give me Florida and Tennessee in the championship game, where the Florida Gators defeat Tennessee by a score of 81-73 to win the national championship, to hang the banner in a season when Todd Golden has been under scrutiny, in which the Gators have faced injury to key players, but in which I think they are the best team overall, and will prove that to be true in March. So there you go. That is how I see it. You can now fill out your bracket with confidence. My Final Four here on In the Shed with Wes is Michigan State and Florida, Alabama and Tennessee, with a rematch of the SEC Tournament Championship of Florida and Tennessee for all the marbles. What do you think? Where did I go wrong? What upsets did I miss? What upsets did I predict that are completely off the board? What do you think happens? Who is going to win this tournament? Who's going to hang the banner? It's always fun to get your input, to watch things develop in real time together. You can email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter at intheshed4 and let us know what you think. I would love to hear from you. That's all for this week. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I can't either. It's back in the house and out of the shed for me. Thanks again for listening to episode 86. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, and review. It really does help. If you have any paranormal experiences, opinions about sports or politics that you'd like to share, you can email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Again, that's intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. I might even read it on air. Look for us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, the Good Pods app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And follow us on X at In The Shed 4. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel at In The Shed with Wes Anderson 6670. Tune in again next week when we hit the headlines. Take a look at our brackets and dive into the mystery together of Indrid Cold. This has been In The Shed with Wes Anderson, the best news show in the land covering politics, sports, and the paranormal. Have an adventurous and fulfilling week. I'll catch you tools later. Peace out, Boy Scouts. Meemaw, we made it.
We sure did.